of sound like pee. It probably looks like pee, too.
I gotta add the honey.
Wow.
That's perfect tea.
Sound of nature. Glad we got that out of the way. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of MindMoversPodcast. I'm one of your hosts, Steve. You can find me at youth_thinking, and I'm joined with Brando.
What's going on, guys? This is Brando. You can find me on Twitter at mind_of_peace. And today we're going to be bringing on a handful of our fans and talking about whatever topic they choose to discuss. So this is a really exciting and new thing that we've never done before, and we hope you enjoy it. You want to go into the technical stuff?
Oh, yeah. If you're trying to find the podcast on iTunes, like let's say you're listening on SoundCloud or YouTube or the website, you can download the podcast app on your iPhone and then go ahead and subscribe, and you'll be downloading all the podcasts. Also, if you're on Android, you can try searching for the Stitcher app. We should be on there as well. Again, we're on YouTube, and we're also on SoundCloud. If you want to find us on SoundCloud, just type in MindMoversPodcast, and we only have like the most recent podcasts on there. So also check out the website, MindMoversPodcast.com. I highly recommend you go there first. It's going to have way more stuff all in one place. Books mentioned, herbs mentioned, and places you can buy those things, and all the podcasts to listen to. So, and contact form, which, by the way, thank you to everyone who sent out emails. They mean a lot to us, and I always enjoy reading them. Sometimes I read them more than once. So shout out to all the peeps sent us emails via contact form.
Yeah, those messages really make my day when I read them, and I really appreciate them all. Thank you for sending them. Ratings and reviews help us a lot on iTunes, so we appreciate those as well. Thank you for all the good ones so far, and the bad ones. You know, we like to learn from the bad ones too. Let's jump into Herb of the Week. All right, the Herb of the Week is licorice, and its name is derived from a Greek word that I can't pronounce, but it means sweet root, and it's in the Leguminusae family. Probably didn't say that right either. The parts used are the roots, and the energy is neutral. Taste is pleasant, and the system is affected are the lungs, stomach, intestines, spleen, liver, and it has basically general effects on the entire body. The properties are expectorant, which means it expels mucus from the lungs and throat. It's an alterative, which means it's a blood purifier. It's a demulcent, which means it soothes and protects the damaged tissue, or it prevents your tissue from being damaged. It's one of the most important herbs in Chinese medicine because it has general effects on the whole body and can alleviate harsh aspects of some herbs without interfering with the benefits because it's a neutral herb. It is used to harmonize the body and increase the potential healing effects of other herbs. It's mostly used as a harmonizing thing and to alleviate harsh aspects of detoxifying herbs like dandelion or echinacea. It's added to most Chinese medicinal teas to balance them. It can act as a stimulant, which fights stress, and it can be used for stomach and intestinal ulcers. Licorice can be made into a decoction and taken periodically for allergies. A decoction is made by boiling hardy plant material like roots, barks, and stems in water for about 15 or more minutes, depending on the species, and then straining and cooling. The reason you want to use a decoction for things like the roots and the bark is because some of those nutrients are locked deep within them, and they don't come out right away like a tea does because you're using the leaves and they're much softer and smaller. So for things like the roots and barks, you definitely want to use the decoction method. They can be used to treat flus, colds, and other lung ailments. Licorice can be smoked to relieve sore throat. It benefits the liver, which also makes it a blood purifier. It can be used as a sweetener for diabetics because it's 30 to 50 times sweeter than sugar. It can be found in many candies, Twizzlers, stuff like that. The sad aspect of licorice is that the majority of the world's licorice root doesn't go towards medicinal benefits. It actually goes towards the tobacco industry. It's a common additive in almost all cigarettes and chewing tobacco and stuff. And it's estimated that 75 to 90% of all licorice root ends up in tobacco products, which is a little bit sad. I'm not going to dwell on it because I'm glad that I'm part of that 10% who uses it for medicinal purposes. So that's licorice root.
Awesome. Well, let's get started on the Epic Podcast.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
So who are you? Where are you from? Twitter handle?
Well, my name is Alicia, and I'm from Ohio, and my Twitter handle is Lish with 3 S's and an underscore at the end.
Okay, so LISSSH_.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Perfect.
Did you have a question for us or a topic to talk about?
I was thinking about talking about today's youth, since I'm a senior in high school still, and I've only got a little bit left, but I don't know, it honestly, my generation scares me, I can't lie.
That kind of scares me too then.
It does. I just look around at school and I'm like, what is wrong with you people? You need to realize what you're doing to yourselves and doing to people around you.
Yeah, so it's awesome to hear kind of someone from high school's perspective, since Brandon and I aren't in high school anymore. So we talk a lot about change education, but we can't forget that we need to get, people on to talk about what's happening in there right now. So that way we kind of have that perspective.
What are some of the things that you're noticing in school that maybe you don't necessarily agree with, or that maybe are leading towards just human demise?
I think my biggest thing with the people around me, my age, is that how they look and perceive drugs. And everyone's doing it to the point to just party and just get crazy. But I mean, I look at it as something spiritual, something that opens up your mind and things like that. And it's taking over their lives, but they're just, I don't know, it just upsets me because they don't use it in a positive way,
So
Yeah,
there's
I agree
a
with
lot
that.
of abuse, drug abuse
Yes.
rather than drug use.
Yes, definitely. And it just seems like it's all about the abuse and the partying and not what's going on around you in the world. The whole Malaysia plane crash, or not crash, but disappearance, a lot of people don't know about it, and it just shocks me.
Well, to be fair, if they're using them to party. There's nothing wrong with that because, having a good time every now and then is not a big deal. But if you're overusing them and kind of giving off that stereotypical drug abuse image, then it's kind of just puts shame on the drugs themselves. Do you think if kids your age perhaps had a class, maybe in like middle school, early high school, about drugs, like a drug education class, do you think that would be helpful?
I mean, I really think it would, because they teach you from such a young age that, like, this is so bad, it's going to fry your brain cells, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. And I mean, don't get me wrong, like, they have their downsides, but I mean, they're not all bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way to combat that kind of thing is we can't have like another DARE program because it's not honest enough for kids. It's really kind of stupid. But now we have things online like podcasts, YouTube videos, where it's kind of up to the kids now, if they're not getting it from education, to look online and get kind of a true exposure to that kind of stuff. And I think the only way that you're really going to take care of the problem is with yourself and kind of show people like, hey, I'm not using it for that. Look at all these things I'm finding, and not necessarily go around telling everyone that it's the bad way to go, but kind of showing people like, hey, this route might be a little bit better.
Yeah, that's how, like, the small little couple friends I have, I mean, we all think about it all the same way and have the same mindset on things. And it's funny because some people think we are so weird the way we look at things and how we think, but I don't know. It doesn't bother me.
You should probably stay that way because weird's better when you get out into the real world. I guess the way I see what's happening right now is you're traveling down a road with a car full of your friends, and you know where you're going, and you see the sun and all these beautiful things going down the road, and the kids in high school that you feel are doing the wrong thing are distractions. They're billboards. They're places to stop. They're movie theaters, things like that. And it's okay to go to a movie theater every once in a while, but it's important to get back in your car and start traveling where you need to go. So if you're too focused on the billboards and all the distractions, you're not going to be going where you need to go. And I guess that's the way I kind of look at that.
That's a good way.
However, sometimes those billboards could distract you to the point where you have an epiphany. So they're not necessarily all bad. Because say you see a billboard and it kind of changes your perspective on something or makes you think about it, maybe you're going to bang a left turn instead of a right turn at that next stop sign. So there's a lot of variables, a lot of that shit that we perceive as, distractions or negative are actually, the building blocks of our lives.
Yeah. I mean, I can say that I've learned a lot from the people around me and their experiences. That's for sure. So I think that really helps too.
Oh, it definitely does. Looking at everything as a learning experience, whether you see it as bad or good, it's just about searching a little bit deeper for what you can learn from that situation.
It definitely is. That's just, if I can say that's the number one thing I've learned from high school and being as old as I am, I learn people's mistakes and I just learn from them and I take what I can get out of them. But I have learned from mushrooms that, I don't know, it's so hard to put into words for me because everything just felt so different.
Sometimes it's okay not to put it in words.
It's hard. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to put it into words, quite honestly.
It's so hard to put in words because there are no words that have been made or, defined to describe these spiritual experiences. I think, as Steve said, it's kind of best left at, I know you know.
Exactly. Like, I don't know. I just know what I felt. I know what I saw. It's in my mind. It's just, I know.
Yeah, and in the end, that's all that really matters, isn't it?
Definitely.
That was a really good question / topic.
Well,
yeah.
Well, I mean, I thought it would be because
Yeah, because we talk about the youth and
I don't know. I think it's good to have a person at my age. Exactly. And so I thought that would be good to bring up.
did you have another one? We could probably squeeze another one in.
Everything that I wanted to talk about has already been covered, so
Nice.
I didn't know what else.
That means we're doing a good job then.
Yeah.
You guys are. You guys are awesome.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, we
course.
really appreciate you coming on here and being a listener and everything.
Well, thank you tons for letting me come on here, and thank you for coming out with this. Like, I don't know. I love it.
It keeps us going, and we'll probably be doing something like this again. So thanks for joining the first one.
Of course. Like I said, thanks for letting me.
We're going to move on to the next one now. We got a busy lineup.
Well, have fun with the
All
rest
right.
of it, and hope you guys learn some things and hear some cool things.
All right. Thank
Yeah.
you. Have a good
Thanks
one.
a lot.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello?
Hey, can you hear
Hello.
us?
Hey guys, what's going on?
How's it going?
Nah,
It's going pretty good. I'm pretty excited.
Nice. You sound crystal clear, so that's good news.
Y'all sound good too.
awesome.
Did you have
So,
Go ahead, Brandon.
what did you want to talk about today? Questions, topics?
Man, there are a lot of things. I made a list. I guess the first thing is, Steven, if some of the first few podcasts, we're talking about how you used to be in this mentality of revolution and rebellion against like the government and stuff. And I kind of wanted to know more about how you got out of that mindset and got more into about self-discipline and stuff like that, about changing yourself first.
Wow, that's a good question.
Yeah, that's a solid question.
I guess the first thing I did is I started looking on YouTube for like inspirational videos, things like that, and I stumbled across Alan Watts. So I started consuming a ton of Alan Watts videos, as much as I could get my hands on, pretty much every day. And I don't know, I've always kind of had the same ideas as Alan, so I think the important thing is to find someone that's sort of like a mentor that you don't necessarily have to, be with in the real world, but you can look at all their videos online. And it kind of distracted me in a good way from all the negative stuff. And then I just tried to apply all that stuff to my life, like focusing on maybe some of the things that I do wrong. And that takes a lot of self-reflection and honesty. So that's the big things that I changed.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds great. Like, I feel like I've been going through this phase of just like revolution and like the government's out to get us and stuff. And I guess I just need to start getting out of that mindset.
Yeah, and it's good that you had it, because, I mean, it's important to have that kind of thing. But I think I just felt that I could be more productive with what I was doing, because I was getting sucked into it.
Maybe it's just like a phase that you go through that you have to go through to get to the point where you've gotten to.
Yeah, that's the way I see it.
It's kind of like, you're this caterpillar, and then you go through this revolutionary phase, which would be, you're in your cocoon, you're kind of going through all these changes, and then you come out and you're this beautiful butterfly, and you're flying around all freely, and you notice everything is just beautiful around you. I've gone through the same experience, and I guess I wouldn't say Alan Watts was my mentor. I would say someone more along the lines of George Carlin. And a lot of the things he talked about, like with politics, is kind of like we are the government. It's all of us. We're all together. There is no us versus them, and that's kind of one of the changing points for me in that situation.
Yeah, that's definitely good. Thank you for that. There's another thing that I don't know. I'm a junior in high school in Tennessee, so I'm almost 17. I guess I've been going through this phase where I feel like I'm more, not to sound like conceited or anything, but I feel like more active, like in my brain. I feel like I'm thinking on a higher level than other people, and there's like not a lot of people that I can talk to, so it's good to listen to you guys. But I feel like I can't find exactly where I'm supposed to be, like in the world, and like what my purpose is. But I know, and I have a passion to like find a way to make my mark on this world. I know that one day I'm going to die, and I just feel like I need to leave something behind. I need to leave my story behind so somebody and everybody will hear about it. Not necessarily like be popular or famous or anything, but I feel like I need to do something, and I don't know what that is. And I get inspired really easily, just like by you guys in quotes. I love quotes more than anything. And I just have really bad self-discipline, and I can't stay motivated and do things. I feel like I need something more to like push me through. I don't know what it is.
I think you sound a lot like me, and it's hard for me to stay focused on one thing. I always take the cream off the top of the glass, and I move on to the next one. So I think it's important to kind of, whatever your intuition's telling you to do, try to be more fluid with that. Try to accept that. I know society tells you that you need to master one thing in order to be good, but I think you should go, like, follow your gut, follow the intuition, follow the things that are happening, and I think you'll probably be a lot happier if you just kind of go with what your instinct is. And your instinct is telling you, hey, if you're bored of this, move on to the next thing.
Right.
You know, don't try to force yourself to be stuck in a certain topic, because it's a lot easier if you just kind of explore. And then you'll start to make connections between everything that you've read or learned about. And honestly, people see that as pretty crazy. And, you know, you go out into the real world and find a job, you can totally use that in the workforce, because
right.
People love people who can bring in outside perspective and make connections. And that's kind of what you have to develop.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds great.
Also, you want to go out and open as many doors as possible, really, kind of like what Steve was saying. I mean, you go into one door and maybe you like it, but then you find out it's not quite for you. So you go to the next door, and you just keep going through these different, aspects of life and different paths and different roads and routes, and eventually you will find your role. You will find the right path, and you'll know when you're on it. It won't be a big sign. It's not going to be like, hey, this is the right path, but you're going to know inside, and that's where your motivation is going to come from. You're not motivated because you haven't found that right road yet. You haven't found that road where it's just calling you and pulling you to go down that road.
Yeah, so I guess a lot of that is just time and trying new things and different experiences.
Yeah, trying new things is the most important thing in your situation, it sounds like, and just getting your hands on things and not worrying about whether or not it's going to be the greatest thing ever, like you said, not worrying about being famous, but right now you're trying to figure out what it is you really like.
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to do that is if you just try things. Like,
I think that's
ahead.
why, like, your podcasts are so great for me, because it's opening all these doors to all these different things that I've, like, never heard of. And it's just great, because then I'll go and I'll look at it for a while and I'll find something else I really like. So
yeah, a bunch of different topics to dive into.
Yeah. And so I guess another thing was I really like the whole self-teach, self-education thing that you guys talk about, where you just you teach yourself more than a lot of these crappy jobs teachers are doing. And I can definitely relate to that, going to school 5 days a week for 7 hours a day. And I go to a magnet school, so it's like hard AP classes, advanced honors classes, and it's just stress, meditation, stuff like that. I mean, I think I need to work on, like, meditation helping, like, deal with my stress and anxiety and stuff. But I need help working, like, I need tips and stuff for meditation, more like how to, because I've tried to, and I just feel like I'm not really getting much out of it.
Did you want to answer that, Brandon, or you want me to?
Well, when you meditate, it's all about kind of doing it your own way. We all, like, sometimes you'll try to do it the best way possible. You'll go online, okay, this is how I should do it. But a lot of the times the best way to meditate is just to do it how your mind thinks you should do it. So maybe for me, I like music. I love music, and I can just sit there and listen to music, and my mind just stops. It just shuts off. And, like, I don't have to be sitting in, like, sometimes I'll sit in, like, the typical sitting arrangement, but I don't have to be sitting. I can be laying on my back, and I will just life itself will just disappear around me while I'm listening to music, whether it's just instrumental or even if it has lyrics. And that's just how it works for me. So maybe there's a way that it will work for you, but you got to find that way. You got to keep trying different things and see which way works for you.
All right, that definitely sounds good too. I guess it's just going to be more experimentation and thinking about different ways to try it.
Yeah, the best thing is just try. I mean, you don't have any goals set for that kind of thing. You just kind of try it and see how it works. For me, I mean, sometimes I do the best meditation when someone's driving and I'm in the passenger seat and I just look out into a field and I just sit there. And people always ask me what's wrong because I'm being so silent, and nothing's wrong. I'm actually like kind of meditating in that moment. And it sounds like you're going to need that kind of thing, because if you're taking AP classes, your brain is working overtime all the time. And if you're thinking a lot, your brain's just running 24/7. And even when you sleep, it's probably running still, thinking about all that homework or like thinking about or dreaming, things like that. So those times are going to be crucial. And if you start doing it, you'll notice that, wow, I feel a lot more refreshed and relaxed. And you might start doing better and even better than you were in your AP classes. And I don't know how well you're doing. Maybe you're getting 4.0s. I don't know if you could do better, but
Trying.
Do you think a lot of that stress that you acquire from all these AP classes and honors classes and all this extra work, do you think that's kind of acquired from all the stuff that you have to memorize? It's kind of like your mind is working overtime just to retain all this information because you don't fully understand it.
Honestly, I've been so stressed out that it's resulted into like copying and cheating, and I honestly don't have time to memorize. I feel so stressed out because I have so many things to do on my plate. I don't remember which podcast it was, but you were talking about that girl that talked about she had soccer practice and had to do chores and homework and all that stuff. That's definitely me. Like, I'm just go and go and go, and it's all in my head at once, and I can't get it organized. And I think that definitely does not help with anything.
That you bring up a really interesting point, because you're a junior in high school, and that quote that I read, that was a girl who was in, I believe, 4th or 5th grade. So this isn't just something that's happening on a higher level. It's something that's just going on from the time you enter school till the time you get pooped out at the end and plopped into a toilet of just your own debt.
But like, I recognize that it's happening. I don't know exactly what to do about it.
I mean, as long as you can keep up with your classes, you can always just bring a book to class. I used to do that all the time. I would sit in the back of chemistry class and I would do Rubik's Cubes. And, the teacher would be like, hey, what are you doing back there? I'm like, nothing. I'm just doing this Rubik's Cube. Oh, well, you're not paying attention. What's the answer to this on the board? And I'd give her the answer and she'd be like, all right, I guess I'll just shut up. So, I mean, there's things you can do. You can bring a book and research a topic in the back of the classroom or whatever.
Yeah. I like that.
Just don't get discouraged. Try it out for yourself, and you'll have to be pretty creative, but I'm sure you'll find a workflow that kind of works for you. And, even if it's 15 minutes of free time that you have, that's 15 minutes that you get to spend on something, and that adds up, especially if it's every day. Then it turns into a month and a year. So, just work on getting out of high school and then seeing if you have a little more free time.
Go from there, yeah. The other thing is, like, where I live, nature is kind of hard to come by. And I love how you guys talk about nature, and I love it. I love being out there in the trees, and I just want to be dropped in a forest, and I want to survive, like, by myself. I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be cool to get to know nature and get to know that better.
We dream about that, too.
Yep, I just finished your last podcast about going off with a backpack, and that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it does.
And one thing to remember when I don't know, what do you live in, like a city or maybe the suburbs? the one thing you got to do is you got to keep your eyes open because there is nature. There is nature in there. If you look in the sidewalk cracks, you'll see dandelions. And those are like gifts from birds. You know, these birds fly in, they have these seeds on their bodies, and they drop them right there in those cracks, and they grow just for you. You know, just look at them. And, you know, I'm sure you have trees. I'm sure you have a little bit of grass here and there. Just go around and, you know, look at it.
Yeah.
Look more closely.
So I'm sure we're about up on time. Do you guys have any questions for me?
No, I don't think so. We really appreciate you coming on and bringing some very interesting topics. It was great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
of course. There's one more thing. There's a while back I wrote a poem. It was about nature that I did it for school, and at first everybody was just BSing it and was like, "Oh well, I'll just write some stuff down." And I started to actually think about it, and it just kept flowing. And could I read that for you guys real quick?
Yeah, that's
Please
fine.
do.
All right. Society is a sickness and conformity is a disease. Characteristics are artificial, our peers we try to please. Day by day we mindlessly follow a routine, believing we have a choice. And if you don't realize it soon, you'll no longer have a voice. But there is one cure I know of, a cure for this disease. You can't see it or hear it, but rather it's in the trees. The industrious noises in your head have been killed. Now there is freedom and peace thanks to these natural pills. The breeze flows past the branches and breathes life back into your heart. And through the silence, this thought emerges that on this world you can leave your mark.
Wow, that was really good.
Yeah, that's one of the best poems I've heard in a long time. That was really, really good.
I liked that. I think you should stick with that poem writing because that was really good.
There are times where I can just write and it's amazing and it comes out really well. And then, but that's the times when I'm not trying, or the times that I am trying, or the times that I'm not trying. But when I actually try to, and I sit down, I'm like, okay, I want to write, then I can't do it.
I have that. I have that
Same
same
thing.
problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, guys, keep up your great work. I love it. And if you ever have any free time or you ever want to chat again, please let me know because I'll have plenty of questions. And if you ever think of anything you want to ask me, I've talked to you guys on Twitter and I'm on here now. So
Awesome.
Awesome.
You want to
Really
go ahead and
appreciate
drop
it.
your
Thank you.
Twitter handle if you
Appreciate
wanted to?
what'd you say?
Did you want to go ahead and drop your Twitter handle if you wanted to?
Yeah, it's it's kind of confusing. Never
Oh,
mind.
it's at Hello Kello, but it's
Yeah, it's spelled all
threes
weird.
instead of e's.
Well, it'll be in the description, and we'll tweet it out. So it's no big deal.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming on.
See ya.
Thank you. Hello.
Yes.
This is Brandon, and you are on the Mind Movers podcast. What's going on, man?
Nothing much. I'm just sort of chilling out on a chair outside, just sort of thinking about stuff.
That's excellent. Steve will be right back, but are there any topics or questions that you plan that you want to discuss about?
Not really. I was just kind of thinking about that, what I was gonna say on here to you guys, because I like what you guys are doing with this podcast and everything, and I like what you guys stand for. And it was just something that I noticed. I'm in high school right now. I go to South Forsyth. I live in sort of like a suburbs of Cumming.
Yep.
And I just like kind of realized that everyone is sort of the same, and it kind of bugs me.
What similarities are you noticing that kind of bug you?
In behavior and everything, everyone sort of wears the same thing. It's sort of like a uniform society. Like everyone wears the same thing, says the same stuff, just does the same thing, and I mean it's kind of hard to fit in. And when everyone's doing the same thing, and I just don't like what these people kind of stand for. Like they're the type of people that'll say, I'm gonna get like wasted tonight, and then they'll go to like church in the morning and still think that they're like good people or whatever.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I've had that same thought a lot where, I go around, I see all these people doing these things that I just don't necessarily agree with.
Yeah.
And then I've kind of just changed. And instead of looking at those things and saying, well, they're doing it wrong, or, they're not doing it the same as me, I'm kind of just thinking, well, it's just a ride, kind of like Bill Hicks says. And if they want to go ahead and follow and make those choices, that's their choice. But they'll see what they're going to see where they end up by following, whereas you're going to be making these different choices all on your own, kind of taking your own path, and later on they're going to look back and they're going to say, wow, maybe I made a left turn with that guy, or maybe I should have went off on my own way. So you kind of have to just be that change you kind of want to see.
Yeah, nobody really thinks for themselves in my area. I mean, I'm not really sure if it's too different anywhere else, but that's just what I've kind of noticed.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. It's a cultural thing. This whole society is kind of, what's on the news, what's the best song, what's the most popular drink, and this and this. It's all about the popularity contest.
Yeah. And in comparison to them, like, there are a whole mass of people that are sort of just the same. And then in comparison to them and me and my, like, small group of peers or whatever, it feels like we're the ones doing it wrong because everyone else is sort of doing the same thing. So that's kind of bugs me about it.
The best way to go about changing that is to kind of maybe talk to some of these people. So maybe they like to party and you like to just chill out at home and think about things. However, it doesn't mean that you don't think about the same things. I know a lot of people that are completely different from me. They have completely different views on things. However, sometimes when we talk, they will have the same thoughts as me. And it's like, wow, I didn't know a guy like you would be thinking about the same things as me, but they are. So it's kind of like, we have these different exteriors, but a lot of us have these similarities inside, and you kind of just need to break through that difference and kind of make that connection.
Yeah. And some of the people, like, I'll be talking to somebody, like this girl, she asked me for help in math, and so I was helping her, and she was like really nice and everything. And then the second she was with all of her friends, she turned into a completely different person. So I kind of have a hard time believing what anybody says to me, or like trusting anybody when I know they're just going to be different around their friends.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. That's kind of a hard thing to deal with, but I think you should just kind of not let it bother you too much and focus. I mean, and the way I see that is it's shining a light on what you feel is important in your life, is being real with people. Because in reality, how real would you be if everybody was on the same level of realness? You wouldn't have anything to compare yourself to. So it's almost like, because I hear so many kids saying everybody's different than me, and it's starting to seem like a lot of people say that. So maybe everyone sees everybody else as like, wow, they don't do the things that I do. And maybe there's a reason for that, because everybody around you is teaching you something.
Yeah, and I didn't want to like come on here and just complain the whole time or anything like that.
Oh, it's no big deal. I mean, everyone has things that are on their mind that they'd like to discuss, and I have no problem with that.
Yeah, did you guys have a certain topic for this show or anything?
Everybody's been bringing on just kind of their own little question or topic. It's going pretty good so far.
Yeah. What are your standings on weed?
Well, just like anything in this universe or world or whatever you want to call it, it can be used as a tool or it can be used as a drug. So, there's people that are going to abuse it and there's people that are going to use it. Both are, that's fine. I mean, it is just a ride. And if you want to abuse it, that's your choice. That's your own personal choice. That's only going to affect you. So it really comes down to just making our own personal decisions that are best for ourselves. And some of us are making bad decisions. Some of us are making good decisions. But in the end, we kind of just end up in the same place anyway. So,
yeah.
I guess my opinion on it is it's funny that we have to call it a stance on it, because I don't have a stance on grape juice or like a stance on how a steak tastes. So it's weird that we have to have a stance on it. So it's almost like, because it's illegal, it's turning into a thing that we focus a lot of our attention on instead of just doing it right before bed or whenever we want to do it. Who cares how people are doing it, I guess, but I've never had a problem with it. No one's ever punched me in the face and been like, how's this marijuana I smoked? So I don't have a problem with it. It's fine. I mean, people seem a lot nicer and happier and hungrier. So what's the point? I don't see
Yeah.
why it's illegal. I don't. It's kind of weird, but I don't know. I guess I don't really have I guess that's my stance in a way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's kind of odd to even make such a thing illegal, but in a sense, it's really not illegal. You can't, like the law of physics, like law of gravity, that is a law. You know, you can't break that law. However, a law
Yeah.
against a plant, obviously that's going to be broken because that's not a real law. That's just some guy saying that, hey, you shouldn't do this. That's just someone's personal opinion. That's not really a law. That's just an opinion backed by a guy who's in control of a bunch of guns that will kill you and put you in a cage. So
Yeah.
the laws are, I don't know, they're more like maybe guidelines, but they're not laws. They're definitely not laws. They're more like rules.
Like, yeah, because I just don't really understand like why people are threatened by a plant.
Well, a lot of it comes down to profit. Hemp was a big thing in America for the entire time we've been here. I mean, there were laws where it was illegal not to grow hemp. Because they used hemp for ropes and sails, and paper. The Declaration of Independence was written on hemp paper, and another thing they used hemp paper for Bibles. The reason that we have a lot of these ancient texts is because they were written on hemp paper, which can last much longer than normal paper. So without the use of hemp, a lot of these older Bibles, a lot of these older texts wouldn't even exist.
Yeah, that's true. Wow, you guys are so like smart. Damn.
Dude, come on, man. You got time.
Yeah,
You'll be smarter than we are, trust me.
it's just feels pretty good to know that there are other people that like think deeper than what they're having for dinner.
I like that. That's a good saying. I think I've said that in my life a couple times too. I'll be like, gosh, my mom just cares about what's for dinner tonight. I can't handle this right now. I'm trying to
Yeah.
solve all the world's problem in my head, and she wants to know what we're having for dinner. But it's important to have those times too. So just kind of look at everything as a learning experience.
Yeah, that is true.
All right, well, we're getting to that 15-minute mark. We really appreciate you coming on. You brought a lot of good charisma on here, and we appreciate the conversation.
All right, yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. It was an honor to be talking to you guys on here.
Did you want to drop your Twitter handle or no?
Sure. Do I just like say it or?
Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
It's at Mark_Morris MORRISS.
Awesome.
All right. Well, yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me. Have a nice day.
Thanks.
Thanks,
you
you
too.
too. Appreciate
See ya.
it.
Bye. Did you have a topic or question you wanted to bring up?
Well, not like really. I was thinking, I don't know, I just started listening to your podcast like a few days ago, and I don't know if you guys have talked about like quantum physics or anything yet.
Oh no, I don't think we have.
Now, the thing about it is we like to touch on topics, but we don't really go in depth on topics unless either we are more than just amateurs, because we don't want to put out information that's incorrect. So sometimes we'll try and bring on like an expert. So if we had a quantum physics expert or someone who knew more about quantum physics than we do, because we don't know anything about it, we would be more than happy to bring someone like that on.
Yeah, I've read a little bit about it. I'm no expert though.
It's a very interesting topic, that's for sure.
Yeah. Have you guys ever heard about quantum suicide
I
No.
don't think I have.
or quantum immortality?
Go on.
Yeah, well, basically, quantum suicide is this thought experiment where you have this machine, it's hooked up to a gun, and this machine, every time you press the button, it measures the spin of a quark. And there's a 50% chance that the quark is spinning either clockwise or counterclockwise. And if it spins clockwise, the gun fires and you die. And if it spins counterclockwise, then you just hear the gun click. And what quantum immortality says is that every time you press the button, you just hear the click, because the universe splits for every possible outcome. So your consciousness is kind of bound to the universe in which you survive. So every time you press the button, you just hear the click and you don't die. And
Wait, so the person would die?
if you were the person doing the experiment, you wouldn't die. If somebody else was doing it, they'd die. It's based on probability then.
Whoa. I'm trying to wrap my head around this.
Yeah,
It's
me,
pretty
me
crazy
too.
stuff.
That's very
Wait,
interesting.
So the person clicking the button would
They
get shot if it spun
only
it?
experience the universe in which they survive.
Whoa.
Yeah, basically, quantum immortality says that like nobody ever dies. You just are immortal, basically,
So,
and you
like,
just experience like everybody else dying.
I see.
so what got you interested in quantum physics? Like, what else do you know about quantum physics?
This is pretty much like all I've read into it. Like I heard a podcast about it before, and I just thought it was pretty interesting.
Dude, that's super interesting. I might have to look that up. It's called quantum immortality?
Suicide.
Quantum suicide.
Quantum
Okay.
suicide or quantum immortality. I think you could look both of them up.
Oh, I'm going to have to look that one up. That sounds intense.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, especially since you can't even like prove that it's like true or false.
I mean, that's with almost anything that has to do with like the universe or, your mind, your thoughts. You can't really. There is no proof. Just like energy, there's not so much proof behind energy because we're kind of surrounded by energy. Energy's all around us. We're like fish in water, where fish don't really know much about water. They just kind of are swimming through it.
Oh, yeah, true. I read a quote about that. It was like, I'm not sure who discovered water, but it certainly wasn't a fish.
Yeah. I've heard
Yeah.
that one too.
Yeah, I think we had Pinotic on the podcast, and he brought that up.
Have you guys ever read a book called God's Debris?
It's
I
called
have
what?
not.
God's Debris.
No, I have not. I'm going to have to write that down though.
What's that about?
It's a pretty cool book that my friend showed me like last summer. It's about like this package delivery guy who he delivers a package to this guy's house, and he goes in and it's this really old guy who literally knows everything. And the book is just like this conversation that they have about all this stuff like philosophy and like consciousness and religion and everything. And it talks about all this stuff, and it's really cool.
Oh, I see. So it's a book about his conversation with that person.
It's really cool stuff. It's not that long either. Like I read it in a few days.
Is that like a real, like a nonfiction or fictional?
I believe it's fiction.
Okay. Well,
It's
I'll have
really,
to check that out.
It's a really interesting book, though.
I might throw it up on the book list on the website.
Yep, we'll throw it up there so people can find that.
Okay, did you want to go ahead and shout out your Twitter handle or no?
Yeah, alright. It's at Chaim Raphael, Chaim_Raphael, CHAIM_RAFAEL.
Perfect.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
problem.
really appreciate it.
Thanks for the interesting topics. I'm going to have to go look that up now.
Alright, dude.
Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
All right, what's your
Awesome.
name? What's your Twitter handle?
My name is Contessa Coffenberry. My Twitter handle is at Cajun Contessa.
Awesome. And did you have a question or a topic to talk about?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to bring up the penal system in Sweden.
The what?
Awesome.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, education system in Sweden.
The penal system, actually, their criminal rehabilitational system.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
great.
nice.
Let's dive into it.
All right. So, okay, what I really like to relate this to is the importance of each individual person. You know, we say that we're only one person of 7 billion people and 100 billion star systems on one of 8 planets and 100 billion galaxies, and it's crazy, you know, and that means that every single person is just as important as the next, even criminals, you know, and we're taking these people out of society, you know, we're taking away their connection to nature, we're taking away their human dignity as an individual. And Sweden actually likes to not put people in prison. They like to keep people out of prison, and if they do put them in prison, they like to keep their human dignity. Their rooms almost look like dorm rooms, and they have only like a 30% recriminalization rate. So that means only 30% of the people they put in prison go back to prison, which I think is really cool, which actually is like half of America's rate.
Are you in America or are you in Sweden?
I'm in America.
Oh,
I've just
okay.
done a lot of research about this.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, why would we take someone who hasn't been loved their whole life and throw them in a place where there's less love? It seems like you'd want to make it a place where, you know, you can rehabilitate that person. Prison doesn't really make sense. It hasn't ever made sense to me in the United
Ever.
States, but
It's never really worked. I mean, if you're gonna put someone in a cage, and then let them back out in a couple years, say you put a murderer in a cage, well, what makes you think after being locked in a cage when he gets out he's not going to want to go kill another person? So it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, actually, like, okay, only half of the people that are charged for a criminal act go to jail in Sweden, and 30% serve 2 months or less, and 28% serve 2 to 6 months. So that's about half of their. And even if you get sentenced for life, you can reappeal in a couple years to have a minimal sentence put on. And then their goals are to kind of help the people realize what they have done is wrong, and, you know, accept that they can't do it again, help them realize why it was wrong and not to do it again. So they actually give psychiatric care to a lot of the people that come through their jails. And I think that's really something that America needs to start focusing on, because, you know, we actually only lead the world in 3 different statistics: the amount of adults that believe in angels, defense spending, where we spend more than 26 other countries combined, and amount of incarcerated persons per capita, which I think is really sad.
I think we might also be one of the fattest countries.
I'm not sure if we lead that in that statistic. Not
Yeah,
quite yet.
we might be number 2. I think we were at 1 and now we're at 2. I don't know, maybe a couple extra people went on a diet or something.
Yeah.
there's just some island out there with a bunch of Buddhas chilling on it.
Bunch of fat people.
Yeah.
Another thing I kind of wanted to bring up was vibrational frequency. Someone asked me to talk about this. Actually, it's about tuning, and most of the music we listen to today is tuned to A equals 440 hertz, when actually, mathematically, in line with the universe, we should be tuning things to 432 hertz. It actually causes 440 hertz, that kind of tuning. It causes an anxiety inside the human brain, and you can see this kind of stuff through somatics. If you've ever looked at somatics, you see like rice or seeds or powder reacting to these sounds, and it actually creates geometric shapes when the sounds are played. And I think it's kind of funny that, you know, we realize these scientific things, but we still chose to create this anxiety inside human mind by tuning music that we listen to every day, constantly, to something that would damage our brains.
Maybe it's possible that people who make music don't understand the effects that their tunes or vibrations have on other people also.
I really think that people understand these things. You know, if a lot of musicians do something called music theory, and in understanding music theory, you have to understand dissonance and, you know, resonation and how sounds react with the human brain. And, you know, there are committees out there that talk about these kinds of things with each other and make the rules about them. And in I think 64 or something like that. They actually chose to make this. They made it a rule that this would be the standard, despite the fact that it causes actually quite large negative effects on the human brain.
Now, what kind of, like, if they had changed that tuning, would the music sound completely different?
It's 8 beats per second different than what we hear now. You can actually look it up. If you look up somatics, you'll hear the difference in the sound. It's a softer, lighter, more beautiful sound, really. It creates almost a harmony, a peace within the human mind, and changing it creates this anxiety inside us. It actually, if you look at molecules that have been, put up to the sound, you can see that on a microscopic level, the one that got to hear 432 hertz, it's geometric, it's in line with the universe. It's very natural. It's in a very good state. And then when you look at the one that has been put up to 440 hertz, it looks very stressed. It looks very unnatural, and it looks very uncomfortable.
What about, like, animals, like a bird singing or an animal, roaring? Would that be at a similar hertz or different?
Every single sound is at a different level of hertz. It's a measurement of vibrational frequency. So each sound is on a different level, but what equals 432 hertz in our world is the middle A sound in music. Mm-hmm. So when you find the middle A on a guitar or on any instrument, really, you're finding that 432 hertz. And actually, Tibetan monks use the scale of 432 rather than 440, and by using that scale, it kind of sets off each note a little differently. Each note sounds just a little bit different, and the reason they use it is because it's mathematically aligned with the universe, and it creates a harmony with nature, they believe. And when you ask them how did they find the notes they use in their chants, and the they'll tell you it came from nature.
That's awesome.
That's pretty amazing. I'm glad you brought this stuff up.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to share it and, get people thinking about it. I think it's important.
One question I have is, I noticed that, like, when I listen to music, I'm sure most of it is in that frequency that you mentioned. I don't feel the anxiety, though. Like, music really doesn't do that for me.
It's only 8 beats per second different than what it normally would be. So some people actually can't hear it, but others who are really aware of the music around them, or just anybody really, you don't notice these things inside you. But, if you see it, if you look at it and you're realizing, wow, this actually makes a big difference scientifically right in front of my face. This makes a difference. What is this doing to my brain?
Right.
So,
and if you hear the difference, you'll start to realize, wow, that actually kind of doesn't sound too good.
So we would have to have Brandon listen to metal that's at
432.
432 versus 440.
I see. I could do that. Blindfold them, be like A or B.
If you look up the theory, just Google it, type it in, search it, you'll find videos, and you'll hear the sound, and it's like, whoa, that's way different.
Wow, that's really cool. I'm definitely going to check that out, and I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say how nice it is to be talking to you guys. I come from a small town where finding abstract thinkers is really hard. I've had teachers stop, throw their hands up in frustration, and literally tell me your existence confuses me. And it's really not. Yeah, it's
that's
ridiculous.
Harsh.
Yeah, that's definitely how I feel about it too. Like, oh, well, I'm sorry you don't like me. I'm sorry you confuse me. And I confuse you, but still here, and you still got to deal with me. So
just
I'm
make
still
it
a
even
student.
harder for them.
I actually do. I make it kind of hard for teachers. I kind of lead little rebellions in class. They don't like it.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you for bringing that topic on.
Yeah, thanks for talking to me.
Yeah, have a great day.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Hey, how's it going, man?
Hey, man. How's it going?
Doing all right. Probably got through 5 people so far, so.
You're doing 10?
Yeah, 10. Mm-hmm.
Roughly. Some
Alright,
people
well.
might. Is there a topic or question that you'd like to discuss?
I guess I had like a kind of general question that I was going to ask at the end, but I guess I just kind of want to start with, I guess, I would call it a testimony.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So, like, let's see how long. It was a couple months ago. Our house got raided up at college because the cops found like 3 stems in our garbage can that they dug through for some God knows reason. And so now I'm kind of facing some crap with possession of mushrooms. And so I kind of like gave up on like doing school and like all that kind of stuff because I kind of thought I was going to go to jail because they had like an 11-year sentence on me. And my mom, like, you know, parents are always telling you how you should find the good and the bad all the time. So, I mean, it took a little while for me to start thinking about it that way, but, I mean, I sat down and started to just try to, like, find self-enlightenment, kind of stuff like that, and that's when I started listening to your guys' podcast. And it just seems, have you ever had it where you'll be looking into something and it just seems to fall into, like, exactly what you've been trying to research?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, like law of attraction kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I know you guys were talking about, like, I don't know if it was on the when you were talking about Nature University, but the John Muir guy. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I know you guys like talk about Nature University all the time, which I think is like a great idea. Something like that kind of did. But there's just so much to learn from nature. I guess one of my questions I was going to ask you guys was, what do you guys in particular take out of nature? Like, I know in my, like, when I go and I'll sit by the river and I'll just like I'll just quiet my mind and just sit there and listen, and I guess it's taught me to be patient. I was just wondering if you guys had anything like that, any experience like that.
That's one of the major experiences that I get from nature. When I go out in nature, everything is kind of just like laid back and relaxed and patient, and I just kind of, you know, I would look for water. I don't know why, but I love going out into the woods and just kind of finding water, like puddles and waterfalls and stuff. Something just draws me to the water. Maybe it's because I'm made of water. I don't know. But whenever I'm in nature, just it's like peace. Peace is really the best way I could describe peace is nature. And whenever I'm in nature, I am in peace with myself.
Yeah, definitely. I know what you mean about the water. I think maybe it's just like the sound of the running water just helps relax you, and I don't know, just all year round waters.
Maybe it's because we're homesick. You know, we kind of came out of the oceans before there was life on land. All life existed in the water. So maybe us walking back to the water and us going to the water is kind of like us being homesick. It's kind of like nostalgia for us.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, I never thought about it until you brought it up. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Is there anything else you learned from nature, or like taken away from it?
For me, it's kind of like it's so real, and the lessons it has to teach you, those just seem like they've been planned out for a very long time. They don't seem to have any kind of side effects that are super dangerous for you. So it's kind of like whenever I go into nature, it's like, whoa, this is kind of the real world. What can I learn from this? And it's almost like you can learn something new every day. It depends on how open you are to learning something. Like if I plucked a flower and I said, well, let's say I don't pluck the flower, I just leave it there so it keeps living. But if I say, what does this teach you? It's crazy because someone can come up with a new thing they learned from that flower. And then there's just so many things in nature, so you could do that with everything. And it kind of teaches you to be more open-minded and try to see what you can learn from that thing instead of being told, this is what you need to learn, this is the only answer. So I guess it's kind of a world outside of the world that we've created.
Yeah, your mic keeps like just dropping off into the universe.
I'm gonna try flipping my computer up.
It sounds like you're fighting a bear now.
You know, and if there's one other thing that I've learned from nature, it's kind of like to change, to be open to change, because you know, you ever notice how birds will pick up like cigarette buds and they'll put them in their nests? I'm pretty sure they do that to it's like a natural pesticide. It keeps like insects out. So like if they're you know, if they have eggs there, they don't have to worry about eggs chewing into chewing into the eggs and killing the babies or whatever. So by adapting to what their environment is around them, they're kind of making a better scenario for themselves.
That's pretty crazy. That just from cigarettes. Think about people that are smoking those.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with how many cigarette butts are thrown out in the ground, but it's just crazy that nature still finds a way to make it useful. Like, nature doesn't look at it and say, oh, great, there's freaking trash all over the place. They're kind of like, well, how can I use this trash? Maybe I can use it for something. And it's insane that these birds somehow figured out that the nicotine in these cigarette butts could, like, how do you even think something like that would figure that out? Blows my mind.
I know I saw a picture on Twitter the other day. It was a hermit crab that was using the top of a glass bottle as its shell. It's pretty adaptable.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, so that's amazing. And like, while we look at all this trash as negative, a lot of these other things, I mean, like I said, I don't agree with the litter, but it just blows my mind that parts of nature are just adapting to it. They're not like, oh great, there's trash over here, this is the worst thing ever. They're like, I can use this for something. I know I can. Let me just check it out and figure it out.
And the universe likes to wrap things around. So in the beginning, you mentioned that your parents are always telling you to try to find the good and the bad. What is that crab doing? It's obviously in a space that's very bad for it, but it's finding a way to make it work for that crab. And that's kind of a thing that Brandon is saying, that nature teaches you. You need to be creative, and you need to be able to adapt to change. And that's how you survive. That's how you find the good and the bad.
Make it work.
Yeah, definitely. And I know, like, sounds kind of weird, but there's like a ton of squirrels where I go to school, and I feel like they just use like anything they can find to insulate their homes. Like, I've seen them just pick up trash off the street and take it like up into the trees.
Yeah, they don't see it as trash. They see it as something else useful for them.
Just another object that they can use to, I don't know, better their own lives or increase their survivability.
Well, I guess I don't really know how much more time I got, but I had thought of another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if you guys have touched on it in any other podcast, but do any of you guys have any like experience with like astral projection or lucid dreaming, anything like that?
I firsthand, I don't have much experience with that. I know I had one meditation experience where something kind of similar to astral projection happened, but I wouldn't necessarily call it astral projection. So I don't think I have much information about it.
Astral projection for me, I've only tried to do it like 3 or 4 times, and it's hard because how am I supposed to know I'm astral projecting? By reading something. Someone might explain what it feels like, but I don't know what it feels like. So sometimes I'm confused on whether or not I'm really doing it. But what I try to do is when I'm meditating, I put on music that's specifically for astral projection, and then I try to think of myself doing that or try to picture that. It's not even really thinking, it's kind of like imagining it happening. And then it kind of just happens when you do that. And at first you might think, oh, I just kind of made that up in my head, but it seems very real in that moment. And I guess that's just my experience with it. We're trying to bring on somebody who has a lot more experience with it so we can kind of confirm and give tips for everyone else.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Because, I mean, I've been just kind of reading into it and trying it. I mean, I've always had like lucid, vivid dreams, and I guess recently I've been trying to just give astral projection a try. And I thought, the other night I thought I was dreaming, so I was like yelling in my sleep or like in my dream, but I guess I was just yelling in real life. I scared my roommates.
That's great.
That's funny. We really appreciate you coming on and bringing a lot of interesting stuff to this podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Sorry about my mic.
Oh, no big deal. Did you want to go ahead and give everyone your Twitter handle?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at T_HEIS.
Awesome.
And hope you guys have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, you too. Thanks for coming on. Why don't you start off with your name and your Twitter handle if you want to?
My name is Derek. My Twitter is @blues.
Oh, okay, cool. Did you have a question or topic you want to talk about for 10 minutes?
I was thinking about talking about something I had to do recently for school. I had to do a research paper on internet censorship, but I have something more important I'd like to talk about. Yesterday I took my first stream trip, actually last night, and it was insane. I'm still trying to make sense of it,
I
but
see.
I watched you guys' podcast on the mushroom one, and I don't know, like just to see if it would kind of help. And I don't know, I thought it was really interesting, and I just want to know like, your guys' opinion because I don't know, I might be wrong, but did you say you've never taken shrooms before?
Yeah, me, I haven't, but Brandon
I,
has.
yeah, I took them once about, I want to say 3 to 4 weeks ago, and I took way too much. I took them at night, and I took them in the dark, and it was insane. I mean, because you've had the similar experience, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's very hard to explain in words because there really are no words to describe it. So that's why people like Aubrey Marcus or Amber Lyon are great people to advocate for psychedelics because they do such a wonderful job at describing the experiences.
Yeah, I
So
definitely agree. Something I kept on thinking throughout the whole night is that there's no way with human words that you can describe emotions, and there's so many emotions that don't have words associated with them, and that makes it really difficult, especially when you're trying to talk to someone. You know, like recalling the trip, which is hard in itself, but having to explain the feelings at the same time is so difficult, and it takes a long time, at least for me, to understand and comprehend it.
Yeah, I
well,
see.
one thing Aubrey Marcus said on podcast number 7 is that words are just approximations of ideas, whereas we're describing these things as best as possible, but it's not quite exact. It's in your head, in your mind, it's perfect, but once you try to put it outside into like a song or you put it into words, it's just not the same. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. That was the biggest like biggest thing in my way when I was trying to describe it to people. I'm just like I really can't describe this. It was just I was just speechless, and I was just dumbfounded. I could not understand what was happening. And then about 6 hours later, after I'd taken the first dose, I smoked too, and after that I was just confused and I could not make sense of anything. It was a whole different experience in itself.
Now, when you talk about it and you think about what happened, does the idea or the experience in your mind feel like it's something you know, but as soon as you try to put it into words, it kind of loses its known? Does that make sense? It's kind of hard to understand, but
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's kind of more of remembering it. It's just I have to keep on going over and like retracing my steps kind of and just going through the timeline and trying to remember what happened. And then once you do that, it's still another barrier of how do I explain this? How do I put it to words? And it's just I don't know. It's incredible. It's awesome. But I wish it was easier to communicate.
yeah, and it's I think it might be important, at least for me, to wrap my head around it first, and that be the only goal for now. I guess the way I see it is everyone's going to kind of experience it in their own way. There may be some similarities, but I guess the way I see it is if I understand it, that's what's most important, and maybe there'll be somebody else that kind of finds some similarities, and by speaking about it, it helps other people wrap their head around their own individual experience.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not. I was gonna ask you guys another question. It was about meditation, actually. How important do you think it is? And the reason I'm kind of asking is, I'm not. I don't understand like astral projection and stuff, all that kind of stuff. But last night, I definitely feel like there was something connecting me to it, like a different like I wouldn't say dimension. I don't even know a different reality or dimension, but it kind of gave me like a spark of interest into meditation, and I don't know. I just do you guys meditate, or what do you like?
I meditate, not, I wouldn't say super frequently, but when I think it's necessary, I kind of use it more as a tool to kind of like just clear stress away, or to kind of just relax and let some of these extra thoughts or baggage that I have attached to me just kind of let them go. So I would say maybe once or twice every 2 weeks, or every week, maybe for like 20 to 25 minutes, depending on the situation. And I'm usually listening to music as I do it.
And what kind of method do you use? Do you use the I don't know. I read online. There's a few different kinds of.
You can you can do the typical thing where you kind of sit Indian style and meditate, or you can kind of find your own method. There's a lot of methods out there. One of the biggest and best methods that I kind of like also, it's not your typical method. It's more so just going out in nature. That to me is like meditation. So every time I'm going on a hike, or I'm sitting by the water, or I'm at the beach, or I'm high up on a rock and I'm just looking at the horizon, that is meditation. That is like every single thought, every single stress and worry and problem in my life just disappears, and all I see is this beautiful horizon and this beautiful world. And that is like one of the most powerful ways of meditation I think there is. And I think it gets overlooked a lot. I think a lot of people think that there's only one way to meditate, but that doesn't quite make sense, because if the universe is an infinite thing, why would there be a limited way to meditate?
Yeah, and I see what you mean.
When you research these things, I think it's important to try to replicate those things in your life, because you're never going to find what works for you just by reading. So you're going to want to read about them and then try to practice those. That way you can find which one works best for you. Because I'm obviously going to give you what's best for me, but that's not always going to be what's best for you. It's kind of going to guide you into the direction of trying it and experiencing it. But I think I agree with Brandon. Nature's really good, but it's nature's not good if you're with, 3 people that constantly want to talk about school or work or things like that. That's just more thoughts in a different environment. A lot of people,
Right.
when they go in nature and they backpack or will go for walks, they kind of split up, and they silence their mind and they just observe. And that's kind of being in the present moment, which is sort of what meditation is trying to get at.
Yeah, I see. That's another thing I was thinking about a lot last night. Is there's such a conflict. I don't know if it's just me or everybody has such a conflict with dealing with time in the past and the future, and wanting to meet expectations in the future, and thinking about mistakes we made in the past. And it's so difficult to just kind of live in the present, but it's very important. And it's kind of a hard thing to bring yourself to do, because I don't know, we've grown up all our lives. We've had tests in the future of school. We've talked about things in the past. I mean, reminiscing on the past and thinking about it, and if there's something cool, like, oh yeah, I remember when we went on this vacation, like, that's cool. But negative things and mistakes, I don't know. What do you think? Is it all right to look in the past with like happy events, or is it only bad if it's bad, like negative events? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
There's Go ahead.
You can go ahead.
The thing about time is such a strange thing. There's that saying where it's like, well, time doesn't exist, clocks do. And there's nothing wrong with looking in the past, but you don't want to focus on it, and you don't want to focus on the future either. You kind of want to just focus on this present moment. And when you get done talking with us, if you go on YouTube and you look up George Carlin and put in the word time, George Carlin time, he does this amazing bit. And I think it's literally one of the greatest 5-minute discussions about time that I've ever heard in my life. Like if you put time in the dictionary, it should literally say go to YouTube and type in George Carlin time, because it's literally the best description of time. And he talks about how people are always asking him what time it is, but you never really know what time it is, because when you ask someone what time it is, by the time you go to respond, the time's already changed. So it's like people are talking about the moment, but they kind of just let it go. Like the moment's, it's always here. It's always here. There's never like a past or a present. It's just right here, right now. So check that video out, and it might cause you to change some thoughts and look at time a little bit differently.
I'll look it up for sure. That seems interesting. Time is such a abstract concept to understand for me. I don't know. It's really confusing and interesting at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem, is it's abstract, but we're trying to force it to be structured, and you can't make something that's so abstract structured. It's like drawing grid lines on a squiggly line. It's always going to be squiggly. You can break it into parts and make it seem like it's structured, but it never will be, and that's probably why it causes a little bit of stress. Now, with the thinking of in the past, it's okay to have those thoughts. There's a problem when you start worrying about worrying. You should just let that thought happen, smile, let it go. The problem is if you think about it for too long, it kind of wraps a leash around your neck and it drags you wherever it wants to go, and it usually ends up down a dark path. So it's important to kind of focus on that. Be like, wow, I'm having a thought about the past. This is cool. And you can talk to yourself out loud about it. I do that sometimes with things. Be like, I'm totally thinking about a negative thing in the past. That's funny. And when you do that, you're back in the present moment. You just let that thought go by speaking out loud and laughing about it. So it takes a lot of practice, but you're recognizing it, and that's a big first step.
I see. How long do you think it'll take? I don't know how to say this. As like a group of people, kind of like society in general, how long do you think it'll take for us to become more spiritually inclined or aware? I don't know how to like explain. The cyclic cycle where we kind of go into a dark phase as a population, and then we go into a more enlightened phase where we discover spiritual enlightenment. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I have, actually.
Isn't it every 30,000 years or something like that? That someone, I don't know where I heard that, but
yeah,
I don't know. Do you think we'll ever reach a point where we're fully, even the point where we're interdimensional beings, or do you think that's something that's completely we're incapable of in the reality that we live in?
I think it is possible that there are cycles. I mean, we see it in a lot of different things, like short shorts or something. But I mean, even that's a cycle. So there's cycles everywhere. As far as a time or a date, I'm not sure. Maybe there is a time, but the universe goes, that time's too soon. I need to push the date back a little bit more. Who knows? I think it'll happen, but I have no idea when it will happen. And I just know deep down that it will happen when it needs to happen.
Graham Hancock, he's an author of a couple books that are amazing, like the book Fingerprints of the Gods, which is about kind of like ancient, like Egypt and stuff. And he mentions that like a cycle, I think I could be wrong, is like 26,000 years. So he has this thing where it's like, if the Egyptians didn't build the pyramids in, I think it was like 11 or 12,000 BC, then the only way for them to have been built would be 26,000 years before that, around like 38,000 BC, because of like this cycle of intelligence or whatever. So it's like we kind of like slowly get to the top of this. We peak at this point where like our technology is extremely advanced, and then at some point we kind of just drop off and start from the bottom and go back up to the top. You know, started at the bottom and now we're here.
Lame.
But you know, eventually we're gonna be back at the bottom. It's kind of like it's like that road we're driving on. We're going down the hill and up the hill, down the hill, sideways, left. So,
Do you think we're at the bottom or the top right now?
I think we're
Say middle going up.
Yeah, I think we're slowly going up. You know, our technology is going up, but I'm not sure if humanity's going up. Humanity's kind of like we've kind of flatlined where the road of technology, the road that technology is traveling on, that thing is skyrocketing to its high point. And humans are kind of just going on this flat road.
We're hitting potholes right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Changing a flat tire.
All right, I only have one more question for you guys. Do you view religion in general as a positive or a negative to society?
Well, much like anything in this universe, there is good and there's bad to it. I mean, you can look at church and you can be like, well, it's 40 people, you know, blindlessly following whatever that preacher's saying. Or you can look at it and say it's, you know, 40 people coming together for one reason, you know, much like a concert, you know, you got 30 people just coming together and screaming their hearts out for this lyrics and this band because they love it, and there's so much love and energy, and you know, there's that same thing in a church atmosphere or something along those lines. So I think there's a lot of negatives and positives that surround religion in general. There's a lot of misinformation also.
Yeah, I see. All right, well, that's the only thing that's all I had written down to ask you guys.
Awesome. Thanks for the topics and questions. Really appreciate it.
All right, thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming on.
Have a good
See
one.
ya.
All right. So we have Corey on. Did you want to go ahead and drop your Twitter handle real quick?
Yeah, go ahead and reintroduce yourself. We'll start from
All
there.
right. My name is Corey Jervik. I'm from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. My Twitter name's also Corey Jervik. Pretty simple, no spaces or anything.
Awesome.
Sorry, I'm losing my voice here. It actually just started happening today when you told me about coming on. So kind of a bad situation.
You just gave a big speech, right, to like 15,000 people and got them all riled up.
Oh, nice. Here we go.
Did you have any questions or topics you wanted to talk about on the podcast?
Well, weed's obviously a good topic all around for anyone. Nowadays, it's definitely a movement that everyone can feel. Definitely for it. I don't understand why, you know, people are so against it and all, you know, all that kind of stuff. They just don't give it the chance that they should. But yeah, a lot of the topics I've been hearing you guys talk about, like I was hearing, I mean, obviously weed for one. I heard you guys talking about garlic. I thought that was pretty interesting. I didn't know how beneficial that herb was, but starting to look into that more. Kind of seeing, you know, the benefits for certain herbs and stuff like that.
What other herbs have you looked into? We usually do. I don't know how many of the podcasts you've listened to, but it's pretty standard for us to we do the herb of the week every week, and that's kind of just because we support like natural and herbal medicines.
Mm-hmm.
So we like to kind of just get that information out there.
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to look more into that and just seeing natural ways to benefit myself instead of using like pharmaceutical like stuff on the shelves and just, you know, all that unnatural stuff that people put in their bodies like multivitamins. I don't even know if I'm really for that. Just trying to find other ways to, you know, like I said, benefit myself.
Yeah.
Well,
that's sorry.
Oh, sorry. Check out the book The Way of Herbs by Michael Tierra. He's one of the, you know, greatest herbalists there is of this day and age, and he knows Eastern herbalism, he knows Western herbalism, he knows Ayurvedic herbalism. So he kind of takes those three different methods and kind of ties them together.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to definitely check that out. Another thing I thought that was interesting, you guys talk about taking different religions and kind of almost making it into one religion. Like it's kind of like a hybrid, I would say. I guess that's what I got out of it. I don't know if it's totally correct, but
Yeah, I think we
like,
did touch on
I've been
that.
really checking out. Yeah.
We kind of talked about how they all kind of say the same thing. They're all just kind of different stories to the same conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Like a big metaphor.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't really totally agree with one certain religion. I can kind of take everything for what it is, appreciate everything for what it is. Definitely been looking into like Buddha's quotes and stuff like that for what he's got to say. He was definitely a man ahead of his time, for sure. And yeah, I just kind of been looking into that, just trying to really take in everything I can, you know, like really using Google and stuff like that. I mean, that's a whole nother topic too. Like people that aren't taking advantage of Google nowadays, I mean, they're gonna fall ahead or fall behind.
Oh, for sure.
Because that's just huge. All that information that we're available to, if we're not using it, I mean,
Not just Google, but also nature. We're kind of like we're kind of just ignoring both of these amazing internet connections where you can go out into nature, and this connection that you have with all the plants, there's so much you can learn, and there's so much education you can get just by being in the forest and observing and really wanting to learn. And you can do the same thing when you're on the computer. You can do that with the internet.
Seriously, I definitely hear you on that. I got a farm out here that I've been just kind of walking out by myself, and really taking everything in that I can, and really trying to open my eyes to everything more, and seeing things for what they are. I mean, when you really got an open mind about things, it really changes your whole perspective on everything. And I mean, I feel like I'm starting a new life by looking at things that way. And the way I put it, I guess, analogy or metaphor to it is, if you start to look at things like a cube, you can look at it for different perspectives instead of like a 1D image, like a lot of people are programmed to do. And I think society has dumbed us down to look at things the way they want us to. And I mean, if we all kind of just had an open mind about things and saw things for what, different sides of what they could be or what it might be, instead of assuming, you're definitely going to grow more. This is just how I kind of feel on that. But
I agree with that.
I really wish
I agree with that because
I feel like I have just.
I'll go ahead.
It really sucks that I got my voice cut out here. I feel like I got more to say,
Oh, it's no problem.
It really sucks. I really want to spit it out, but kind of held back with my voice situation here. We just got snowed on, so.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's just not good.
Basically, I was gonna say that earlier you said you've been trying to test new herbs and things like that to try to get off pharmaceutical stuff. You're kind of looking at that cube or that situation, that problem that you see in a different way than a lot of other people are looking at it. A lot of other people might be like, well, there's no other options. And you decided to go on Google and see if there were some options. There's other people that say, here's an option. How about we fight against the pharmaceutical companies by protesting or using signs and things like that, or kind of arguing with them on Twitter.
And it seems like sometimes when people protest about stuff like that, they don't take them seriously just because we're so used to people protesting, and like sometimes that's not the best way. I mean, it is a good way to get the message out there, but I feel like there's so much protesting, people are kind of just whatever about it, so they don't really listen up. And I feel like the new age protesting is obviously the internet. So instead of going out the streets, people don't take them as serious. Now that we have the internet, I feel like, especially with these podcasts, it's a way of protesting in a way. People will hear you out more and are more understanding than just to see a sign, because although a sign does have more meaning to it than just what it says, people can take it for, different ways. I feel like these podcasts, people definitely hear you out, because it's more consistent. So in a way, it is kind of a protest to, whatever, you happen to be talking about. That's just why I really like what you guys are doing here. Joe Rogan's another person I was really respecting for doing something like this. And I feel like you guys are you got your own direction, but it still kind of ties along.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Joe Rogan is kind of like he's kind of like a bomb being dropped in the water, and out of that giant impact, there's a lot of other waves being generated, such as us, or there's other podcasts out there similar to our projection.
Seriously.
Go ahead,
Same
Steve.
way with music too. It's it's the same idea with music. Like somebody will come up with something for sure, and all of a sudden you'll start hearing things that are similar, but they got their own intentions and ideas lyrically and sounds and stuff like that, I guess. I'm sure like in the 60s that was a movement, when rock and roll was really getting out there, and you start hearing all these people getting that idea and going with it. That wave, like you say, people are really riding it, and being open-minded is that new wave. I mean, it was trying to be done in the 60s, but like I've heard before, we're like the new age of hippies, and it's one weeds become legal again in certain states. It's more out there for us to get. That really opens people up and allows people to see things for what they are or what they could be. Is just how I feel on that, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I was gonna say that even when you were talking about protesters, even you and I see different sides of that cube you were talking about, because I see the protesters as a way of distracting pharmaceutical companies. Pharmaceutical companies are focusing all their attention on all these protesters, while you and I are focusing our time on switching over to herbs. We need someone to distract those people, those eyes, from observing the fact that you and I and Brandon and all these other small group of people are starting to take the medicine out of the cabinets and replacing it with herbs. And that's one way you protest. There's other ways to do it, but we just chose a different side of the cube to look at.
I definitely hear you on that. I would just wish more people would, be more open to that. And I guess this is one way to start. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the world really needs honesty, and it needs people to talk about what they feel and what path they're doing without having to feel like they're being judged. And that's what you're doing, and that's changing things. So don't feel like yours isn't working, because by coming on this podcast or talking to other people in real life about what your perspective is actually working.
Mm-hmm. And another thing that's mind-blowing to me is, if you really think about it, you're not only affecting a person, but you're affecting their generations to come.
Oh, totally.
That's crazy, because they're going to pass along the ideas you've given them or the thoughts you've awakened.
Yeah, it really is dependent on that, because you can try and change your parents, or you can try to change the government, politicians, or the teachers, but they're in their 50s, they're in their 60s or 70s. They're most likely not going to be here by the time our kids are here. So it's kind of like, let's focus on these kids who haven't had kids yet, these kids who or these maybe younger parents, so they will change the way they raise their kids or change the way they go through life. So it kind of starts with that.
Seriously, though. Definitely. I mean, we can change, with these ideas, the course of history. I mean, it all starts small, but you get people moving, like you were saying, a tidal wave, that's a good way of putting it. Like a drop, and then just waves form after that. It's just the ideas that are out there, and once you place those ideas in someone's head, man, it's a crazy thing. People can run away with them and hopefully take the good that you had intention for. And hopefully they take it the right way, the ideas that you're putting out there, and pass it along to other people. It's really a cool thing.
I agree. Even if they don't take it the right way, they take it their own way, it's fine with us. I mean, our goal was to kind of get people to be more open-minded, and hey, they listen to the podcast, and that's a good first start for some people out there.
Yeah.
So
Seriously. So I have a question. Are you guys located? You guys aren't located, obviously, at the same place. How'd you guys meet?
well, it's a cute story of eHarmony. No, I'm just kidding.
Christian mingle.
Yeah, there you go. Brandon's Christian, so I found him on there. We connected. No, but we found each other on Twitter and just kind of built kind of a friendship. So then we just tried different things on Twitter, like the hashtag storm. I don't know if you were a witness of
I'm
that.
not familiar with that, but
yeah, then we just kind of decided to do a podcast.
it's pretty cool though. It's sweet in this day and age that we're allowed to connect with the people that we're meant to connect with. Like, some people can live their whole lives and not connect with a person, that totally understands them or agrees with them, and it's terrible, especially like where I'm from. There's a lot of small towns where I'm from, and people are narrow-minded, and they're not allowed to open up, and it really sucks. But with Twitter and Facebook, it allows us to reach out and meet these people that we wouldn't have met otherwise, and it's only going to benefit you in the long run.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, man. Thanks for bringing on the questions and topics. They were good.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
See you guys.
Have a good one.
You too.
All right, man. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself, name and Twitter handle if you want?
All right. I'm Caden, and my Twitter handle is Caden_Edwards.
Cool. Did you bring any questions or topics you want to talk about today?
I want to talk about how people forgot how to coexist with each other.
Oh, okay. Like getting along, or?
Yeah, like how we forget to value each other's ideas and thoughts.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but not really kind of the way that you're asking. We kind of talked about how I think we touched on how people they kind of see the world in their own way, and they don't really see how other people can view it in a different way. And that I agree, that is kind of a thing that we have to get over, a barrier that we have to cross.
Yeah. Also, let me see. And how people value material objects too much, and they don't value the little things. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty common thing in today's society, where we think all this stuff and all these things will bring us happiness. And you know what? At times they can. I mean, who's to say that stuff can't bring happiness? It really can. I mean, a tree could be considered stuff. I mean, it's all stuff. We're surrounded by stuff. And it's when you start to become dependent on this stuff for happiness, that's when the problem comes into play.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with, having stuff or wanting stuff or using stuff, but once you become dependent on it, that's when you're kind of abusing it, and you're not really using it as a tool for your own happiness. You're kind of using it as a drug to kind of get away.
Yeah, I agree. I also want to talk about how a lot of people don't value their family how they should, and they just come home and go straight into their room without even talking to their parents or kids. Not really a question, but
yeah, I see what you're saying. This is where we kind of have to be careful, because if we want to coexist with people, we need to make sure we value what that person chooses to do. It's very important that I do want to say I agree with you on that kids need to hang out with their parents a little bit more. I mean, there are times where, a kid wants to be left alone in their room, and other people might not understand that. But I guess the way I look at things is you always kind of want to look at it as a way to learn something. Try to look at that problem and say, maybe there's something deeper to this. Why are kids going to their room? Is there something that I didn't think about before that's causing kids not to talk to their parents, or things like that?
Yeah.
I think you yourself can probably find a lot of different reasons behind that, and who knows, that could probably end up being something huge that affects studying that kind of thing. But I think you're onto something, and if you kind of experiment with it and think about it a little bit more, you'll come up with some pretty crazy ideas about it.
Yeah.
One thing about that is I think a lot of it is kind of caused by this disconnection we kind of have with each other. Whereas, a long time ago, the parents raised the kids. They were home with them, till they were 8 or 10 or old enough to leave and go build their own home and go on with their lives. But nowadays, parents kind of abandon their kids anyway. So I think that's kind of where that disconnection is, because a parent might say, oh, well, you never spend time with us. Well, it's also like, well, you also desert me into a school and go somewhere else for 8 hours a day. That could also be considered the parent not spending time with the children.
Yeah.
Whereas I know there's this need to provide for the children and stuff like that, but sometimes in this society, when you try to provide for children, you're also disconnecting yourself from your children.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I guess what I was going to say is that's kind of like what I was touching on earlier, is you try to see it in a way of like, why is this happening? It seems like kids are reacting to something, and maybe they don't want to be around the parents because, like what Brandon said, you're putting me in a place, you're trying to micromanage my life, so the only other option I feel like I have at this point is to kind of get away from you and what you're trying to control. And just kind of look at it as an experiment. Try to figure out why this is happening. Don't always see it as like, oh, this is a choice that people are making consciously, and it's a bad thing. No, try to see if it's like maybe a reaction to something negative, or the turning of the tides, or just an evolution of a child's brain is different than it was, But I think you could probably come up with a lot of cool things if you observed it a little bit more.
Yeah. Do you think like education, like modern education, has a role in that sort of?
I mean, in the sense that modern education is kind of like a law. Like if your kid's not in school, it's against the law. Like, you might not go to jail for it, but you might get fined. And if you do it again, you keep doing it, you might go to jail. So in that sense, it's kind of like, you're forced to put your kids in these schools at gunpoint.
Yeah.
When you go down the line with it. So, and a lot of people don't see that. They think, oh, that's not true because, they're not going to shoot you because your kid's not in school. But if you look at the consequences, it builds. It's first you get the fine, and then you get this, and then you get another fine, and then you get jail time. Well, you're in jail for nothing, and if you try to leave, they're pulling their guns out on you. So they are technically, you are forced to put your kids in school at gunpoint. And I'm not saying school is terrible. There's a lot you can learn in school, but it's not for everyone. It's definitely not for everyone, and I think we start way too early. We shove our kids off to school before we even get to know them, before we even get a chance to have an intelligent conversation with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you think about education right now? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
no, yeah. I don't think I think we need to change it, definitely. Like, not even just a curriculum, but the way that we teach the kids. We need to change that, because most kids don't learn exactly the same as everyone else. Like, we learn differently, so we should be taught differently, like, from every single other kid. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, that's getting onto something right there. I've had the same thought, and you had that intelligent thought because of observing a reaction from other students, from yourself. So I think it's very important that you do speak about what you observe and kind of study that and try to see if you can find some solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that you spoke about what you thought about education, because that's very important for people to hear.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Is there anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, man. Thanks for coming on. Those were great questions.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. You brought a lot of charisma.
I appreciate you guys too. What
Thanks.
you guys do. I like what you guys do.
Thanks. We'll keep bringing the podcast for you.
All right.
All right, man. Keep doing what you do.
Have a good day.
Thank you, guys. You too.
Have a good one. Well, that just about covers all of the guests that emailed us to be on the podcast. Well, 10 of the top 10. So what are some of your thoughts, Brando?
Well, I was really blown away about all the energy that a lot of these younger kids brought to the show. You know, a lot of people don't think that, oh, he's in high school, he's an idiot, or oh, he's young, he's stupid. But I don't get that vibe at all when I talk to some of these kids. I get a really profound and intelligent vibe from them. And they brought a lot of charisma and, you know, courage and a lot of interesting topics to the podcast. So I learned a lot. I learned just by listening to them bring up things and maybe making myself reevaluate some things. So I really appreciate all the guests that came on.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it sounded like some people were nervous. I mean, that's fine. Everyone gets nervous before these types of things. And honestly, I see it as you were nervous and you came on the podcast and did it anyway, which a lot of people might get so nervous they don't do it. So yeah, definitely a lot of courage there. And I agree with the learning part. Quantum suicide, learned about that. Someone dropped an awesome poem. Some people talked about things that happened in their life and they have to find the good and the bad, and a lot of different perspectives. It was cool to have 10 different perspectives on the podcast, or maybe it was 9. I think it was 10. No, it was 9, I believe.
I lost count.
Yeah, it was super interesting. A lot of courage. A lot of people very well spoken for being in high school, and I think we had a 15-year-old on, so that's pretty intense. Very intelligent, like you said. I'm honestly blown away, and here's one point that I want to make. A lot of you guys talk about how people around you don't seem to think the way you do. Well, I just talked with 9 people that's like 9 more people in my life that think sort of on the same plane that I do, and it's pretty cool to see that. It's pretty cool to have 9 different perspectives that all seem very refreshing. And if that's not evidence enough that there's even more than that out there, you know, I don't know what is.
Also, you know, you brought up that a lot of people are noticing that they don't really fit in or they don't really connect with the thoughts of others. Here's something you can do to change that. The fact that a lot of these people may not be open to these ideas that you think about, probably because they've never been, open to them. They've never seen it. They've never heard about it. They've never talked about it. So you can be that person to talk to them about that and open them up to it. You are that person. When people listen to our podcast and then all of a sudden they start thinking differently, that's us changing someone. Someone's like, oh, wow, I heard that, and I never heard that before. Now there's something new. I'm going to research it. I'm going to think about it. You can do that with other people, too. So a lot of those other people that you don't maybe understand or they don't understand you, that's just miscommunication. You need to just get out there and talk to them. Don't be so heavy on it, but put your message out there lightly, and, maybe they'll go research it. And the next day, they might say, hey, wow, what you talked about the other day was really awesome. I went home and researched it, and it's really cool. And, you just made a new friend. So, you can look at it that way too.
Totally agree with that. If you're going to preach about being open-minded, that means you got to accept the people that you feel aren't open-minded, because that's part of being open-minded. And You know, I've talked to people where I was like, wow, they're probably not going to have any deep ideas inside of them. They seem very traditional, but once you break through that shell that they have posted up, it's amazing what people kind of talk about. And it's all about making them feel comfortable in that situation, because it's very uncomfortable ideas. It's kind of like taboo to talk about this stuff, which is weird. But once you kind of break through that shell of other people that other people have put up, you know, it's kind of awesome to hear what people have to say.
Yeah, you know, you kind of like take them out of their environment. You know, if you walk up to a kid who's with all his, you know, football buddies and you start talking about government conspiracies, it might be like, all right, get a load of this weirdo. But if you maybe, I don't know, you're in class and you're assigned to a group project with him, well, now you're one on one. Now it's kind of like maybe I can bring that up. And then now you're bringing this up to this guy. And when he goes and talks to his football buddies or, you know, whatever, that's just an example, he'll mention it to them. So you're not just mentioning it to this kid. Now he's spreading that message to his whole group of friends. And, you know, that's how it works.
Yeah, totally. And it's not like you have to explain it to everybody perfectly. You know, if I drop the idea down to somebody, they might go and think about that for a couple days. You know, if I talk about, you know, aliens or something and I go, have you heard of Anunnaki? I don't have to explain it and convince that person. I can just plant the seed in that person's mind. And maybe they'll come back to me a week later and be like, you know, I thought about Anunnaki when you told me. And you'll be like, wow, I didn't think you cared. I didn't think you even noticed. But it's kind of surprising how much people really take things and go think about it. So, great podcast. Thank you again for everyone coming on. Hope the listeners enjoyed it, and I'm sure we'll do these more often.
Yeah, maybe, you know, every couple months we'll have some of the fans on. So thank you for listening, and we appreciate all the support.
Choo choo. I'm out. See ya.
Later, bitches.